Hello and welcome to Beyond the Boundary. This is the 2015 season preview for the Sydney Swans. My name's Nick Dyson. I'm joined by Josh Rickard and Vinay Lakshman as always. Now boys, the Swans since September, we've seen them have two huge losses. 63 points on grand final day and 176 games of experience in Nick Malceski, a premiership player for them. How are they going to cope and recover from these two big losses?
Well, there's no doubt they'll want to bounce back in 2015. There's absolutely no question. That grand final will also be burning. And they'll be looking to win the flag this year. That'll be their aim, is to win the flag.
Yep, Vinay?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think the Swans are the type of team to get bogged down by anything. They're a very strong, spirited, cultured kind of club. Very tough as well. So I think, they'll be like, we've still got the exact same weapons that we had last year, more or less. And we'll be taking those into 2015.
Well, minus that big one I mentioned in Nick Malceski, we can't underestimate how big of a loss he's going to be. Premiership player, as I mentioned, an absolute mainstay in that half-back line for many years. What are we going to see change in that side?
Well, I remember a couple of years ago, maybe last year actually, that he was the number one rebounding defender in the competition, where he had 50 plus more rebounded 50s than any other player.
Next best player.
The next best player in the competition. That is a phenomenal stat. He had 140, the next best was about 85. So that is just an absolutely phenomenal stat, and he's going to be a crucial loss to the Sydney unit.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think they've got, but having said that, they do have other players that can slot in onto that half back line, and it'll be interesting to see who gets that role because there's been a lot of speculation.
Do we think Gary Rowan could be the candidate there? Sydney, they've pumped this guy's tyres up for quite a few years. He played that role a little bit towards the end of the season last year, but he's been on half forward pocket on a wing. What do you see from Gary Rowan in 2015?
Well, he came at a high price, pick six, and so he hasn't shown we know he's extremely talented. And injuries have slowed him down, but I think half back he looked the most natural there. Played a bit there at the end of last year. And he's, it's a natural role for him. He's quick. He's got decent foot skills. I think his decision making is the only thing that needs to improve. But that'll come with experience, I think. And he seems like the right fit for it. But then you've got others there that are sort of wrestling him for that position. Dane Rampy is one that I really like as a player, who I think can fit in really well there. The likes of Jake Lloyd, Zach Jones, and then we've got Reece Shaw as well, who's getting on in age, but he's still a good, handy rebounding defender.
Josh, I want to ask you about Jake Lloyd specifically. Just signed a 2-year deal. He said himself he had a bit of a poor season last year, but I thought personally it was quite solid.
Yeah, well, he didn't necessarily say he had a poor season. He said he had an underwhelming year.
Okay.
He's still
room for improvement.
Room for improvement. Yeah. That's the word. And he's looking to improve this year. So he set the bar high for himself. But just quickly going back to Gary Rowan, I don't think we can underestimate how significant a compound fracture of a bone is. That does take...
And he missed all 2013 with that.
2013 I'm pretty sure it was. You cannot underestimate how much time that takes to recover from, because a compound fracture is a serious injury. So we're still yet to see the best of Gary Rowan, I feel.
Well, hopefully we can. Another candidate you mentioned, Vinay, was Zach Jones. He's sort of more of a pressure kind of half-back midfielder. But Sydney's the kind of team, they've got so many young midfielders that players like Jones could be pushed into other positions where they have holes, like Malceski leaving, and Zach Jones could be the man to take that role.
I agree. I think Zach Jones, in his draft year, he was looked at as a tough, nuggety inside midfield type, like his brother. Nuggety, like his brother Nathan over at Melbourne. But as you mentioned, Sydney, when you go to a club like Sydney or Hawthorn, you don't play necessarily the role you were drafted to play. You learn to play a number of roles, and I think that's what Zach Jones is going to be doing at Sydney. He's a good player, he tackles very hard, and he's had a great pre-season. From all indications, he's tearing up the track. So, he'll be really pushing for a spot in that starting 22 come round one, whether it's at half-back, whether it's, somewhere else.
Well, reports are Melbourne are already looking at him, so to bring him back to the Demons to play with his brother. So,
well, another player that was looked at closely by clubs in Melbourne, I think Carlton, was
the number one.
Tom Mitchell.
Titchell.
Carlton
wanted him,
The Blues were very keen to bring him back to Melbourne, but he said, no, I want to fight for my spot up at Sydney. What does he have to do to break into that side?
Oh, not much else really, because he tore up the knee for that game where he got 64 touches, kicked 4 goals, didn't get into the team the next week, which I don't know how, but 64 disposals in any league is fantastic.
We talk about players that are too good for the VFL and not quite good enough for the AFL, but Tom Mitchell, he just had the knee for on an absolute string last season.
He's good enough for AFL, there's no doubt about that. He'll play regular senior football in 2015. If he doesn't, I'll be surprised if he's not there.
He definitely will. I think he will. Ted Richards has gone on record actually saying outrightly that he's had a massive pre-season and he'll have a great impact. And Ted Richards felt very bad for him that he missed out on selection a number of times. When you've got a teammate saying that, that probably indicates that you're going to get some game time.
Yeah, that's it.
Now, Harry Cunningham had a great 2014 playing that shutdown role. What do we see from him this season?
Yeah, well, it was fantastic in the later half of 2014 playing that shutdown role, as you said, Nick. And he played on Brent Harvey in the prelim final and did a fantastic job. Harvey was flying in the later half of the year. Up until then, and he shut him down and played a pivotal role in that prelim final. So Tigers cannot be underestimated in this game. They're very crucial players.
Now, one player that we've almost skipped over here, but Isaac Heaney was an absolute steal in the draft for that. He's going to be a huge inclusion. And do we think we could almost see him play senior football this
One of those academy players, isn't he? One of those academy players that has us all bloody getting pretty annoyed at us.
Well, has just about everyone else other than us.
He'll play regular senior football. There's no doubt about that. He would have been picked 3 if he was, or in the top 3 if he wasn't.
He's probably the best midfielder in the draft.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'll play round 1, but he will definitely see game time. Whether it will be eased in as the sub, I think that's how Johnny Longmire tends to do it. In the past, even with the very good players, they've always come in as the sub.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't be surprised if he does that. It's a tough midfield to break into, but he will be a star in the future.
Now, there's a lot of pressure on Sam Reid this season. We've seen him play forward unsuccessfully at times with Lance Franklin, with Kurt Tippett. It's just too tall up there. The word is that he's training with the defenders, and we'll see him move into the back line in 2015.
Yeah, well, he has been training with the defenders, and the back line is quite weak in terms of depth. They've got very good key position posts in Ted Richards and Heath Grundy, but both are hitting 30. Well,
Grundy's 28.
28.
Richards is 31.
Richards is already there.
You've got Reece Shaw, who's 33, and slightly different position, but still.
Yeah, exactly right. And in the depth process, you've got Xavier Richards, Ted's brother.
Ali.
Yes. Vanessa's favourite.
Sam Reid could be a prospect to play in defence.
Definitely.
The other one that's been training in defence, going back to that half back role just quickly, is Lewis Jetta.
Okay.
Lewis Jetta's been playing off that half back role in the pre-season. So
he's got to re-find his mojo, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
He's one that had a lot of his mojo.
It hasn't been the same since 2012.
Oh no, he left it at the grand final. I think
did.
He left it at the MCG and has never since.
And hasn't found it.
If you find it, please return it to Lewis Jetta.
Correct.
Now, after the disappointing grand final performance, which we talked about earlier, which the Swans definitely won't want to see a repeat of, what are we expecting them to come back with in 2015?
Well, a flag.
Yep.
Simple as that, because it'll be burning them. I said at the top of the show, there's no doubt that they don't like to focus on too much in the past.
Yeah.
But there's no doubt that these players want to avenge what happened in 2014.
I think one thing, Sammy Reid going back will shore up their defence. And it's hard to say it'll improve the Sydney defence, but I think it will. Because they're lacking someone really tall since Lewis Roberts-Thompson has gone. And Reid has all the natural weapons to be a good key defender. He's got a good read of the ball. He's got a good overhead mark. Yep. He's got good run and jump at it. And he's physically pretty getting there. So I think he'll be a good inclusion to their defence. And I think a flag is a must. A must. I don't want to say that if they don't win one, it's a failure.
Yeah.
But Sydney fans will still have their eyes on that flag.
Well, one we missed out before we just wrap up is Alex Johnson. He would have been the perfect replacement for Nick Malceski, but unfortunately he's going to miss the season again with that knee injury. Yep. He's suffering a 4th knee reconstruction. He's a terrific young kid, so hope he gets back next year.
Well, having said that, the pass mark we've set for Sydney this year is to make the grand final. He said they'll want a flag. Vinay said it won't be a failure if they don't win a flag, but what we're saying it'll be a failure if they can't at least be there on the last day in September.
I think they definitely should do
to contest for it. That concludes our 2015 season preview for the Sydney Swans. We hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.